zombies of the Third Reich. When you plunder the dreams of madmen, do not cry out when they wake. The ocean lay flat as glass beneath the first light of dawn. Inside the wheelhouse of his salvage boat, Elliot Kane hovered over the sonar console, eyes fixed on the green glowing screen. Pulse after pulse etched the unmistakable outline of a wreck sprawled across the seabed. He nudged the zoom control, and the shape swelled into view. Vast, unmistakably a cargo ship. Rumor named it a Nazi freighter that vanished in 1945 while carrying something the Reich was desperate to keep hidden. If those whispers were true, the prize below was worth any risk. And Elliot felt a surge of hungry excitement tighten in his chest. The preparation was methodical. Oxygen tanks, flashlight, underwater camera, diving knife. Elliot checked and rechecked each piece of equipment, his movements automatic but precise. He wasn't superstitious, but something about this dive felt heavy, as though the ocean itself was holding its breath. He shook off the thought. He'd been diving wrecks for years, and no ghost stories had ever stopped him before. Whatever lay at the bottom of the ocean was just history, waiting to be uncovered. Sliding into the water, Elliot felt the cold bite through his wetsuit. He adjusted his mask and began his descent. The surface world vanished quickly, sunlight swallowed by the endless blue. His flashlight cut through the murk, scattering fish as he passed. The deeper he went, the darker and colder it became, until the ship emerged from the shadows, its rusted hull rising like a monument to the forgotten. Elliot swam closer, his flashlight tracing the jagged edges of the hull. The ship was enormous, its size even more imposing up close. He found an opening near the cargo hold, a tear in the metal wide enough to swim through. As he slipped inside, the water grew murkier, thick with silt, disturbed by his movements. The passageways were wide, the walls rusted and encrusted with marine life. His breathing echoed in his ears, loud and rhythmic, a reminder of how alone he was down here. The cargo hold was vast, its walls lined with crates stacked haphazardly. Many had broken open, their contents spilled across the floor. Elliot's flashlight illuminated strange glass jars scattered among the debris. They were filled with a greenish liquid that glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He picked one up, turning it in his hands. Inside was something organic, its shape distorted by the liquid. It looked like a piece of flesh, unnervingly intact. A low groan reverberated through the ship, freezing him in place. The sound wasn't mechanical, it was deliberate. Elliot swept his flashlight across the cargo hold, stirring clouds of silt from the wreckage below. Shattered crates and rusted beams jutted from the floor, twisted and half-buried. Something drifted near the ceiling. He swung the light upward and froze. A bloated corpse floated there, tangled in the remains of a shredded harness, its pale face tilted toward him with empty, gaping eyes. A strip of rotting uniform clung to its swollen body, fluttering like seaweed in the current. Below, the faint glow of the scattered jars twisted the water into shifting shadows. At the far wall, he caught sight of a crate, intact, its lid cracked open, a sliver of metal gleaming within. Fighting the churn of nausea and fear, Elliot pushed himself forward, drawn by a curiosity he knew he might regret. Inside the crate were rows of cylindrical canisters, neatly arranged and sealed with reinforced metal. These weren't ordinary cargo. The symbols etched into their surfaces were strange, alien even. A mix of jagged lines and curves that seemed to shimmer faintly in the light. Elliot reached for one, hesitating as the groaning sound echoed again, this time accompanied by a faint, scraping noise. He turned sharply, his flashlight darting across the room. For a brief moment, he thought he saw movement, a shadow slipping between the crates at the far end of the hold. His pulse quickened, and he gripped the canister tightly before securing it in the pouch strapped to his side. He turned to leave, and froze. A second shape was rising behind him, slow and deliberate, as if it had been lurking there all along. His flashlight locked onto it, and his breath seized. It was human, or had been. Bloated flesh floated loosely from its bones, and its wide, unblinking eyes glowed with the same sickly green as the liquid in the jars. The thing tilted its head in a dead, curious way, and then moved, arms stretching unnaturally, clawing through the water as it lunged toward him. Elliot kicked backward, his flashlight shaking as he tried to keep the creature in view. He turned and swam toward the torn hull, his legs burning as he pushed himself harder. The groaning and scraping sounds grew louder, joined now by faint, guttural moans. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw more figures emerging from the darkness, their lifeless faces locked onto him. The wreck was waking up, and Elliot wasn't sure he could escape it. Elliot's lungs burned as he scanned the cargo hold, the dead drifting toward him through the murk. He spotted a gap between two rising corpses, a narrow opening he could reach if he moved fast. Kicking hard, he darted through, slipping past a clawed hand that brushed his shoulder. Ahead, a twisted doorway hung open, half blocked by wreckage. Elliot pushed through it and into a tighter passage beyond. He swam fast. Up ahead, the wreckage split open, the breach torn in the ship's side. He angled toward it, heart hammering. Just as he neared the gap, another corpse floated into view, arms outstretched. Elliot slammed into it, shoving it aside, and squeezed through the breach into open water. The faint outline of his boat came into view above, a small beacon of hope in the vast, suffocating blue. The wreck shrank beneath him as he kicked upward, the dark shapes of the dead spilling out behind him. He didn't look back. He fixed his eyes on the faint blur of his boat high above and drove himself toward it with everything he had left. Just as he reached the surface, a cold hand brushed against his ankle. Elliot twisted in panic, his flashlight revealing one of the creatures just below him. Its mouth opened in a silent scream, blackened teeth bared as it clawed toward him. He kicked hard, breaking free of its grasp and pulling himself onto the boat with a surge of adrenaline. Gasping for air, he hauled himself over the side and staggered across the deck. He hit the starter switch with shaking fingers, and the engine rumbled to life. Gripping the wheel, he shoved the throttle forward, surging away from the wreck as the water churned violently behind him. As the boat sped across the waves, Elliot looked back one last time. The ocean was calm, the surface unbroken, as though the horrors below had never existed. But he knew better. The canister sat on the deck beside him, its strange symbols glowing faintly in the fading light. He stared at it, his mind racing with questions he didn't want answered. Whatever was down there wasn't finished, and he had the sinking feeling that he had brought something back with him, something that would never let him go.